a lot of things that require deep expertise, PhD type expertise in the past can now be done by technical savvy people. And I think we're still in the middle of that journey. And I think now with generative AI, we're going to see a lot more of these, I think, ease of access coming forward.
Welcome to the AI and Scale podcast. This is a show that invites AI practitioners and AI experts to share their experiences, challenges, and AI success stories. These conversations will provide answers to your questions. How do I implement AI successfully and sustainably? How do I make a real impact with AI? Our podcast features real AI solutions and innovations, all of them ready for you to harness, and offer a sneak peek into the future. Welcome back to AI at Scale podcast. My name is Gosia Gorska, and today I am hosting Dominik Wee from Microsoft. He is an experienced global business leader focused on transforming large organizations in the digital age. The key theme for him is bringing together two formerly separate words, hardware and software, digital and analog, scale and agility. Having lived and worked in the Silicon Valley as well as in several cities across Europe, he has gained an appreciation for these fields. Dominik combines his passion for technology and background in computer science with many years of experience in driving change in large, complex organizations with 100+ years of heritage. So what are these organizations? He spent 16 years in McKinsey, where he built McKinsey's digital practice for automotive and industrial clients. He spent 4 years at Google as Managing Director Global Automotive, Manufacturing and Energy. And for the last 2 years, he was leading the Manufacturing and Mobility organization at Microsoft and currently works as CVP Industry Solutions Engineering. Welcome, Dominik.
Thanks so much for having me, Gosia.
Yeah, and congratulations on your successful career with Microsoft. Last time we met at Hanover, you were the CVP for Manufacturing and Mobility. And as we meet today, you have been appointed for the position of CVP Industry Solutions Engineering. So my first question is, looking back at your experience and impressive career, can you walk us through how the industry was changing on the axis like hardware versus software, digital versus analog, and how AI influenced this journey?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Gosia. I think the biggest change overall is how we are seeing access to complicated technology getting easier. I think sometimes we talk about democratizing technology. When I started out my career, I did industrial engineering work as a consultant in semiconductor fabs. And we were working on these extremely expensive machines called lithography machines that are basically the main piece of, or the most sophisticated piece of equipment needed to make kind of cutting edge semiconductor chips. And back then it took a lot of highly specialized expertise to do a lot of this work, getting data out, drawing any insights. And I think that has dramatically changed in the, maybe 20 years since. I think a lot of technology has been getting much easier to use. There's some work I think we'll talk about later also we're doing between Schneider and Microsoft in that space, where I think a lot of things that require deep expertise, PhD type expertise in the past can now be done by technical savvy people. And I think we're still in the middle of that journey. And I think now with generative AI, we're going to see a lot more of these, I think, ease of access coming forward. So that has changed a lot, but I think at the same time, there are also some things that haven't changed at all.
Yes.
I also recall back then, being in the semiconductor fab, one of the key factors of, getting real results for the business, which usually meant, getting more chips out or getting more quality or like reducing cost, was getting the technology to work and having the people work with the technology, right? It was always the combination of the two. You could have the greatest system. Actually, recall us, building a new set of algorithms, but we didn't see any changes in the way what's happening in the factory was because the new algorithms weren't used by the people on the shop floor. So you can build the greatest technology if people don't use it. It's kind of pointless. And also, if you have very capable people, but you don't give them the right technology, right, is also, very inefficient. So it's always a combination of the two, kind of the human and the machine working together. And that hasn't changed until the current day. And that's also why Microsoft uses the term co-pilot, not autopilot.
Okay.
Because we very strongly believe that, the AI doesn't replace the human. It's meant to augment the human as a tool in the way tools have always augmented the way humans work.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very nice observation. And it makes me also think about other areas, like you mentioned about industry and manufacturing, but we say similar thing about being able to compose music. Like in the past, it was only possible for the composers, and now with some GenAI tools, you can easily create your own song. So if it works the same with Copilot for the usage of the technology, it will become much easier and indeed democratized. Looking again back in the past, some of our guests of the podcast already explained how AI can greatly optimize various processes. I was wondering, looking at your job in McKinsey, Google, and Microsoft, could you share with us the examples that impressed you the most, like because of their unexpected outcomes or particularly innovative approach?
Right now, at this point in time, the piece that is really mind-blowing is how generative AI can improve customer interactions. I think that's mainly for businesses that are in the B2C space, but it's also extending into the B2B space. For instance, we are working with an airline. They've built a chatbot to talk to their customers and basically enable customers to book flights. And I think we all know these clunky chatbot experiences from the past that have been, very unsatisfying for the customer. And this has dramatically changed, right? It's basically like a ChatGPT conversation, only with the ability to actually talk to the airline and, access their booking engine. And these experiences have become incredibly easy to build. We now have this tool at Microsoft called Copilot Studio that basically enables you without knowing any programming, right? Just, just clicking on a user interface and using natural language also, right? To describe the bot you want to build. Makes it very easy for, I think, every company to improve their customer interface. And I think it basically enables them to increase customer satisfaction while at the same time also decreasing cost. There's a lot of this also happening in the back end. We're also working for Lufthansa, for instance, on the back end processing, like basically people in the call center receiving claims for customers. That's certainly one big area. I think that just lends itself very, very naturally to the capability of large language models. There's obviously also a lot of stuff happening in the factory. We'll talk about PLC code generation later, I think. I think the basic pattern of accessing data on the shop floor. So we are working with an automotive manufacturer, for instance. They have a lot of highly intricate data in their systems on the shop floor. And also remember, doing this industrial engineering work, the basic pattern, what you do is root cause problem solving, right? Something doesn't work or you want something to work better. So why does it not work the way it's supposed to work? And how do I change it? And so what this auto manufacturer does is they basically make all this information available through a natural language interface. And so then the people on the shop floor, they can query that data. And back to my earlier point of not requiring all the specialist expertise anymore, you don't need to be a data scientist all of a sudden, right? The data science is all happening in the back end, but you have a natural language interface. And that interface, by the way, also works in all languages. So most companies we work with, they have dozens, if not even hundreds of factories across the globe in, many different countries and many different languages spoken. So everybody can use their own language to access the system.
Now, I wanted to comment that this is probably the reason why we see such a great adoption of these tools. Even comparing to other platforms and tools in the past, we never witnessed such a great adoption within the first days and weeks of ChatGPT, for example, because it is so easy to use for everyone. And now, as we can access the data coming from the machines, coming from the software through the same natural language, this is really a great experience for the employees, and it makes things much easier, right?
Totally. And I think it's fascinating, right? We now have the ability to create chatbots using natural language. So you use natural language to create natural language chatbots. We also now use LLMs to quality control, right, on new models. So it's kind of, AI building AI. And I think all of this is making things a lot easier. And I think we're also seeing these changes, and I think there's also some work happening between our two companies, happening in everything related to designing and developing these complex engineered systems. So I think, for instance, in your world, right, you're providing complex electrical systems to customers, but we also see this in the design and development cars. We see it with fighter jets, for instance, right? And I think a lot of these products take years and years to develop because there's so much complexity involved, so much regulation also, right? If you're developing a car, you need to be shipping to dozens of different legislations. So just managing regulatory compliance can be a process that takes up to a year for some automakers. And now just imagine taking all your requirements and taking all the regulatory requirements and putting them all into an LLM, and then having the LLM do regulatory compliance checking. That's a use case we also see in the pharma industry, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. Medical compliance checking. And then we also see this in complex industrial goods that maybe underlie some export controls, right? And so depending on which country, if you're making a make of very sophisticated machinery, you export to many different countries, and you might not be able to export the same product, right, because of export controls. So these are all kind of, I think, use cases where we now can use large language models to significantly accelerate the development process.
Yes, and talking about the easiness, so you mentioned about PLC code generation copilot. This was the solution that we were showcasing during Hanover Messe in 2024, and it assists software developers in writing code for industrial computers. Now, obviously, the application helps to write code in shorter time, and because it's based on our internal documentation, the code can be trusted. But what really struck me about the solution is the educational element that I didn't think of, because together with code suggestion, the developer receives the source of information, and they can check and understand why this part of code is changing a concrete asset machine setting. So in your perspective, how crucial the AI-assisted learning is for manufacturing companies?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the work we're doing there with the PLC code generation copilot, because it takes that capability of writing, let's say, mainstream software in Python or C++ to the very, very specific domain of PLC programming, right? Where you have a very limited set of experts in the world. Now, all of a sudden, everybody can program a PLC that has a technical understanding. So I think it's really exciting. The learning piece really blows my mind. And if I recall, like me learning programming, I don't know, a long time ago, it was really difficult, right? It required a lot of dedication. And, you had these heavy textbooks and you had to work to them. And, there was no proper debugging and all this. It was really painful. And now my daughter, like all of a sudden, she came to me and she said, like, oh, look, I learned programming. Like, what? And so she taught herself programming to program a game in Roblox using ChatGPT. And I think it's that same capability that we also have, obviously in a much more sophisticated version of it, right? In the PLC code generation copilot, where the system doesn't just tell you what to do, but it also explains to you what it does. And even more, like if you make a mistake, it tells you what the mistake was and why you made the mistake and how you can do it better, right? It's like the perfect teacher. Mm-hmm. And it's infinitely, compassionate with like all the stupid mistakes you make. And, you don't have to be embarrassed to ask stupid questions. So I think it's really incredible, right? Like how it not just helps you get stuff done, but also learn along the way.
Yeah, and it also replies to the challenge that we hear from our customers. They don't have enough skilled workforce. They don't have enough software developers to be able to reprogram PLCs based on the changing customer demands. Do you see other challenges like this that are also important and could be solved with the usage of AI?
Yeah, I think the labor shortage topic is huge, and I think it's quite universal by now around most parts of the world. It's very pressing in some places like Japan, right, where a huge part of the workforce or a huge part of the population is aged older than 60 now. Mm-hmm. And so we are running out of labor, and we also, like, I think in some of these domains we are running out of educated labor, like educated in that specific domain, or highly skilled labor, I guess, right? Highly experienced labor in these domains. And then also, I think there's certain domains where humans maybe prefer not to work, right? I mean, think about oil rigs, mines, right? I think there's some places where the mines are very harsh and very dangerous for humans to work. And I think in these places, AI can make a real difference. And then again, I think enable a lot more people to do a lot more without requiring these many years of training.
It's maybe hard to imagine what it means that people are not interested in this kind of jobs. And I was recently in a conference, and one of the directors from the services company, he said, we open a position and during 1 month, nobody applied. So this is like showing the real issue for the companies to fill the skills gap, to fill the labor gap. But if we maybe turn into more positive than things, how do you envision the future of connected and intelligent manufacturing, and how is also Microsoft shaping this vision?
Yeah. So I think we are kind of just at the beginning of that journey. I think there's also still a lot of room for old AI, like classic machine learning. I was visiting an auto plant the other day, and they've made a lot of progress in training machine vision models to do quality control on the shop floor. They basically started from being able to kind of spot one type of mistake in one part of the manufacturing process. And now they have these cameras all over the place, right? And so there's still a lot of runway there. But obviously, when we now go into these Gen AI systems, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. And in a way, I think the systems we're building today, they take the current way a company works and they build like a wrapper around it, right? Like to make it more humanly accessible. But if you fundamentally rethink the way a company operates, using agentic technology that is, I think, now commonplace today and easily accessible, right? Like you would probably design a lot of processes in a much different way from the ground up. And I think that's like, and I think this is why this transformation is also going to take us a while, right? Like I think the pace of technology development is insane, right? And it's kind of impossible to keep up. But, bringing it into action in a large company, and we talked about, right? Like, companies having hundreds of factories around the world, like there's only a certain pace in which you can roll out technology and, humans adopting the technology, feeling comfortable with it, right? Like, I think we shouldn't underestimate that part of it, right? Like in the end, and I saw in the very beginning about, humans were like using the technology. There's no use having the best technology if your employees don't use it. So I think that's a process that takes a lot of time. And I think that also takes a lot of investment from the companies.
Yeah, so in the end, it's the old truth that the digital transformation never ends. It's a journey. It's not something that you can do once and never repeat. It looks like it's a real continuous journey for all of the companies. And as you said, some investment was already made. We see a lot of our customers as well having already sorted out the data element that is super important to be able to use AI. And probably in the future, as you say, we may see also the whole process is changing. The way that the customer is interacting with the company will change as well. And potentially some of the customer expectations will be speeding up the pace of the changes that we see in the companies.
Yes, for sure. It's going to put pressure on competition. I think that's right. It's certainly going to happen, right? And I think to a large extent, because the technology is so accessible, I think a lot of the competitive differentiation will depend on, will you be able to make use of it? I totally agree with you, Gosia. Yeah.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you 2 questions about your current role as a CVP Industry Solutions Engineering. How do you plan to apply AI in this role?
You mean for myself?
Or for yourself or the company?
Yeah. We are a software development organization. So we can be and we should be at the cutting edge of what's happening. And I think in a way, software development has been the proving ground of generative AI technology. If you think about it also in our product portfolio, GitHub Copilot was the first Gen AI product with probably even a 2 years lead time before ChatGPT came out, right? So, I mean, that is kind of the mother of all use cases of Gen AIs. writing software code. And that's also why you see so many kind of companies out there right now that are in that space. And again, we're just at the beginning of the journey. We are now in preview with GitHub Copilot workspaces, where you don't just kind of use AI to support the programming, you use AI to support the entire end-to-end software engineering process, which, by the way, I think is also going to come to PLC engineering, right? That same concept, right, of getting AI support for the entire engineering lifecycle, not just the part where you do the coding. And that's hugely impacting our own organization. I would say we are probably in one of the deepest transformations that we've been in a very long time, right? And so we have our own change management to do, we have our own transformation, using the technology, but also adjusting the way we work, right? Like the pace of the engagement that like the team that I've now joined, Industry Solutions Engineering, the pace of change and the pace at which we work with our customers and the agility required at the customer front end has fundamentally, like by an order of magnitude, it has changed. And we've basically reorganized the entire way we operate, just going into this new fiscal year in the summer to accommodate for these new requirements in the way we operate.
That's really amazing. And in the face of such a big change, how do you personally stay ahead of innovations in the AI space, but also technology space?
I think it's like I like to ask that question too, and I haven't found somebody yet who can provide a satisfactory answer. I guess the way that I thought, like I spend a lot of more time on learning than I did in the past. Like I carve out time. I get tutoring now also, like to stay on top of stuff. I've done this in a while.
Yes.
But then also, like, even doing that, like, there's no way. I think in the end, you need to rely on people around you. That's why we operate as teams, right? And so people can like specialize in different parts of it. And I guess it comes back to something that's always been a good idea, right? Like build a strong team around you, right? And then everything else will come.
Yeah, but I think that's the point. Like even as you finished computer science as your studies, the technology that was available back then is no longer the same as today, and it's going to change at a very fast pace. If I can share, I also carve out time for learning, reading a lot, definitely following also people who are talking about the newest technologies, the newest advancement. And what is really amazing for me is that we are actually living in a moment where a lot of the authors, in terms of like the research papers around AI and other technologies, are still alive, and they have their accounts on, social media platforms. You can just follow them. You can even ask them questions. You can kind of also feel involved in shaping the future of this technology. So even the fact, as you said, that Microsoft sees AI as a copilot, not as an autopilot. This is really important, I think, important message for everyone who is interested or maybe a bit scared of the technology and the changes that are ahead of us. But in fact, this is the best time and place to be engaged, to start learning about it and start to shape it as well.
I fully agree. Isn't it awesome to be able to kind of witness all of this in kind of playing out in real time? Yeah, it's like a good movie, just we're like in the middle of it.
Yes, exactly. Okay, thank you, Dominik, so much for your time with us today. I really appreciate that you replied to all the questions and you spent some time with our listeners. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gosia, for having me here today. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for joining us today on AI at Scale podcast. Be sure to visit our se.com/AI website and learn more about our AI at Scale solutions. Head over to our Schneider blog platform to read more. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your preferred platform and share it with your network. Thank you for listening and stay tuned for the next episode.